All right, so I'm going to go over the problems in the review sheet for exam 3. So again, hopefully you've done them all, and then I will just kind of explain them. So pause this and again, print out your review sheet, and I did also email out an answer key. So you might want all of that at your availability when watching this. Okay, so hopefully you've done the first 4 problems on the review here. And so, oopsie, I don't know what just happened. So we can talk about, so order of operations. Hopefully you see that this is a chunk glued together and this is a chunk glued together. Addition separates the 2 chunks. This is like a $12 shirt and this is like the rest of my purchases. So leave the 12 alone. Over here, please excuse. Do I have parentheses? Yes. So in that parenthesis, I'm going to multiply first because we always multiply before we add. And then again, I am not going to deal with any of that. I still have parentheses, which is 4. So I'm done with parentheses. All right, exponents. Do I have one? Yeah. So I have 4 squared, which is 16. Again, everything else, I'm not doing anything else with. Multiply and divide left to right. So again, I got to keep working on this chunk until I get it done. That 12 has nothing to do with that. So what is that? Is that 72? Okay, boy, maybe I found 32. Is that 64? And then 12, so I get an answer of 76. And again, you can double check that on most calculators and it should work. All right, this one, hopefully you can see that this is a chunk and that is a chunk. I know that's not addition, but I could turn it into adding the opposite if I wanted to. So again, adding and subtracting separate your chunks. So please excuse. So do I have parentheses? Yes. So everything else I'm just going to leave alone. And that's a -2 again if you have to add the opposite to see it or use a calculator. All right, so parentheses are done. Do I have any exponents? No. So multiply and divide left to right. And oh, I found an error on the answer key, so I'll have to email you that out. Shoot. Okay. All right, well, 16 or 36 divided by 2 is 18 times 3. Now, here I have a double negative, so that's going to make a positive, and that's where I wrote it wrong on the answer key. So 54 plus 2 should be 56 on that second problem. All right, the next one asks you to explain how to solve this equation. So your goal is to have all your x's on one side and all your numbers on another, kind of like a teeter-totter. And it doesn't matter. If you want all your numbers on this side, that's great. All your x's on this side. And the way you move things is by adding and subtracting, okay? So it really doesn't matter which way you move it. So I like to kind of have more x's, like positive x's. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. These go away, which is the whole goal. And then I can combine these on this side and get that. So part of my goal is done. I have x's on one side. But again, I'm not done. You add and subtract until you get that order. You're kind of doing order of operations backwards. So you got to deal with adding and subtracting until you're done. So add 9 to both sides. And again, we're keeping everything balanced. Okay, now, finally, do I have my goal? Are numbers on one side, x's on the other? Yes. So you're done with the add and subtract step of order of op. So now you're going to multiply and divide. So to get rid of multiplying by 2, you're going to divide by 2, and x is 5. All right, and then the other thing you want to do is check your answer. So on the test, I'll give you more partial credit if you check it. So x is what, 5? Let me rewrite that. Can I erase it a little bit? All right, so x equals 5. So what I want to do is I want to sub that answer back into where the x is on both sides. All right, so if I do that on this side, I get 2 times 5 plus 1. And again, you can just enter that in a calculator. All right, and when I do that, I'm going to get an answer of 11. And then I'm going to enter it over here. So 4 times 5 is 20 minus 9 equals 11. So what I know about my little equation here is that both sides are balanced, just like chemistry. This side's 11, that side's 11. So I know this is right. There's no doubt in my mind. All right, I'm going to pause it a second, and then I'm going to scroll down a little bit. I got to find... Okay, so the next question is one where I would give you some type of formula and area, volume, something like that, and you have to be able to use it. So I want to find the area of this circle, which would be like how much space does it take up. All right, so how much space is inside of it. And the formula is area equals pi r squared, so I'm going to use pi. Radius is the halfway. A diameter divides it through the middle. A radius is halfway. So if the diameter is 6, the radius is 3 feet squared. And so I have pi times 3 squared is 9, and then feet times feet gives me square feet. Because remember, when you multiply, you're creating new units. And so pi is 3.14159, ... Most of you have a pi key on your calculator. So if I multiply those, I get about approximately 28.3, and again, square feet, because when you multiply, your units change because you're creating something new. All right, the next one, I went ahead and put these in order. And are my answer key to find the mean or the average, I added them up, and I divided by 8 numbers, and I got 79.5. So hopefully that's correct. I was using my phone, so that's not always the best calculator, but so just add these up. I ended up getting a total of 636, and divided by 8 gives you that answer. All right, the median is like the middle of the road, and that's why I put these in order, because the middle will change if you move things around. So obviously you got to put them in order to find the true middle. And since I have an even number, there isn't a true middle, so I have to average these. And since they're consecutive, I kind of look and can see 86 is in the middle. Because remember how the midpoint is the average or the middle. So here I can just look and say, oh, 86 is going to be in the middle, but I could also average. All right, and then the mode is the most popular, and this time we have a tie because we have 2 88s over here and 2 90s. And so we would call this bimodal, but there's 88 and 90 are both the modes. All right, let's flip the next page and keep going on. Okay, so on number 5, I noticed another typo. This is what happens when I do things fast. This guy right here should be a plus. So this one is looking at the fact that here they're in this order, but I really want that 1 to go over here so I can make 40, because 40 is a lot easier to add to 47. So if you're moving something, that's commuting. This one, I'm multiplying both of those parts. That's distributive. And on this one, notice the numbers stayed in the same order. I just grouped them differently. I decided to group these. That's associative. All right, pause, and then let's look at the equations next here. Okay, let's look at the next equation. Again, we're trying to get it balanced, and we want to know what each box or each variable is worth. So if you get all the boxes or variables on one side and all the numbers on the other, it's easier to tell what they're worth. So to do that, we're going to add to both sides. Now you can pick whatever you want. I kind of like to get rid of negative x's and have positive x's. So I'm going to get rid of this guy by adding 8x to both sides. And what we're really doing here is we're undoing order of ops. So add and subtract would be the last thing we're doing, so we're going backwards. So I'm going to use adding to get rid of any adding, and in the process I'm going to get x's on one side, numbers on the other. And in this case, I decided to go with this option and put the x's on that side, numbers on the other. It does not matter. Okay, these go away. I get 10x minus 16 equals 10. But I still don't have my numbers on the other side. And again, I still have adding in the problem, and I'm undoing order of ops. So we're going to do that. So I get 10x equals 26. Now I'm ready to divide, because I basically know 10x's equal 26. So if I divide by 10, I can figure out what each x is worth, which is 2.6. You could do a fraction there, but since it's a nice decimal, it's fine. If you're going to do a fraction, I'd divide both by 2 and reduce it and get, 13/5. But I'm fine with the decimal because it terminates. All right, so now the last step is, remember to check your answer. So we're going to take this answer and we are going to plug it in where the x is and where the other x is. And we're going to make sure it actually works. So 2 times 2.6 minus 16, enter on my calculator. And then I'm going to put 10 minus 8 times 2.6, enter on my calculator. And if they both balance out, it's good. And I think I got a negative 10.8 here and a negative 10.8 here. So what that means is that they both balance. So I know that I'm right. All right, let's do the next 2 here. Okay, so our goal again is to get x's on one side, numbers on the other. But before you start doing that, you gotta simplify. So we're gonna go ahead and distribute that, including the negative. So I get x plus 8 equals 12x minus 48, because I gotta multiply that. And this is a negative 3x and a negative 24. If you need to add the opposite to view that as a negative, then do so. All right. So again, before you start, you don't want to move like this and this and this. That's too much. So again, you want to collect like terms. X's and X's make more X's, but I owe them. So I have 12, I owe 3. So that's what, 9. I owe 48, I owe 24. What is that, 72? Minus 72. Okay. Now you're ready to move things because you have a pile of X's and a pile of X's, and you have a pile of numbers and a pile of numbers. And so now you're ready to move things so that you don't have 80 million, addings going on. So I like to keep my X's positive, so I'm going to move them to the right this time, but again, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to bring that over, and I get 8 equals 8x minus 77, is that right? Or 72? I think that was a 2. Yeah, that's a 4. All right, so 72. Now again, we're doing order of op backwards, so we're on this step until we get rid of all adding. So now I'm going to get rid of the minus 72 by adding 72. These cancel. 80 equals 8x, and then now you're ready to divide to figure out what each x equals, which x equals 10. All right, so again, you want to check your answer. So we're going to go ahead and take this answer that we have, this 10, and we're going to shove it into the beginning everywhere we see an x. So 10 plus 8 on this side is 18, and so we want to make sure this side is the same. So 12 times 6 minus, what was it, 3, and then 18. And again, if you type that in your calculator, hit enter, you will get 18 as well. So I know I'm right because the right and the left side balance. Excuse me, just like chemistry. All right, I'm going to pause it. Let's do the proportion and we'll finish up this page. Okay, so when it's a fraction equal to a fraction, we call that a proportion. So I'm going to cross multiply. So I know that anytime you have equivalent fractions, like a half and say 4/8, when you do this, they both 8 equals 8. If you have 3/4 and, I don't know, 6/8, that's 24, that's 24. So I know when I cross multiply, that is going to always happen. So 8x is what I get there. 72 is what I get there. Now it's an equation. There's no fractions in there. Get rid of that. Divide. I get x equals 9. And I can sub it into check just like before. Sub it in here. Does 9/12 equals 6/8? If I divide them, they're both the same decimal. So, yep, I know I'm right. Now, sometimes with fractions we haven't, with proportions we've just scaled up or scaled down. It's hard to see between 8 and 12 what the scale is. Now, if I do reduce this or simplify, then I can see, oh, yeah, I just scale it up by times 3 times 3. Which is good, except when you have something like this, and then you can't scale it up, then you really need to be able to cross multiply and divide. That works a lot easier. All right, pause it. We'll look at numbers 7 and 8. Okay, so question 7, what's your probability of grabbing a red marble? So again, probability is your number of chances to get kind of what you're looking for or what you want over the total number of chances to get anything. So my goal is to get red. There are 2 of them out of how many total? 6. And again, you'd be closing your eyes or you wouldn't be able to look. So the probability would be 1/3 if it's in fraction form, 0.3 repeating if it's in decimal form, or if I divide and multiply by 100, that would be about approximately 33%. So the next one, what's your probability of not getting a yellow? Well, my probability of getting a yellow is 1 out of 6. So everything else has to be, the rest of it has to be not getting yellow. So my probability of not getting yellow is 5/6, and that would be the red and the blue. Again, you could divide and get a decimal, like 0.83 repeating. You could divide and multiply by 100 if you want and get about 83%. So again, lots of ways to write your answer. All right, and then the raffle ticket, you have 200 chances to win if there's a raffle with 200 tickets and you buy 5 of them. And so you could reduce that, divide by 5 and 5, and you could write it as a fraction, 1/40th. Or you could divide and multiply by 100, and you get about, 2.5% chance of winning. All right, that's number 5. In the next video, we will talk about the rest of it.